Hi. So I just finished my first story for Storytime for Grown-ups, which was Walt Whitman's Song of Myself, more of a poem than a story. I just wanted to talk for a minute about some of the themes of the poem, why I chose it. So it's a poem, it's a transcendentalist poem that was written by Walt Whitman in the Civil War era. It is long, it's a verse poem, it's not rhyming, it doesn't have any kind of discernible meter, or when it does, the meter shifts within the poem itself. I particularly enjoy the shifting of the meter and how he uses repetition and parallelism in various ones of his stanzas to kind of go into almost a meditative state about the nature of humanity. So, for instance, when he's talking about the cityscape and he's talking about the hammers on the anvils and the people in their rooms and the people in the streets, and he kind of uses the same sentence structure over and over and over again. It gets kind of repetitive. For some people, it's a little boring, but what it serves to do is kind of create a tapestry unified of the human condition and human experience, which I think is a major theme of this work. This poem meant a lot to me in high school, and it means a lot to me still. It's a work on the cohesiveness of humanity and the interconnectedness of humanity, and how much the things that you do to one are the things that you do to everyone, and the things that you give are the things that you receive. It's not about desert or justice, it's about interconnection. Or at least in my opinion, it's not. Some people might argue otherwise. My favorite stanza of the whole poem is, "Welcome is every organ and attribute of me, and if any man hearty and clean, not an inch nor a particle of an inch is vile, and none shall be less familiar than the rest." Because to me it is a statement of the holiness of man, which is another major theme of the work, and how man is not dirty or wrong or sinful by nature, but just is. The poem talks a lot about the origins, not of man and not even of life, but of being, kind of going back to what we would say is the Big Bang, to the present, stretching into the future, a like continuous tapestry of existence. And it's soothing for me in a way that talk of the afterlife as a concrete thing has never been, and in a way that talk of no afterlife has also never been. It's not a promise of something better, and it's not even a hope for something better. It's a promise that even if you don't continue, everything will continue the way it always has. That there may not be some great plan, but there is some great meaning, and that meaning is formed as we continue to be and to allow for being. He talks about God a lot, and God in the world around you, and he talks a lot about death and life as interconnected properties. And it comforts me to think of death as a part of a greater whole. He talks about equality as well, but not in the way that everyone should have the same rights or everyone should be equal, but in a way that everyone, in being interconnected, is the same. We are all born of star stuff, as Carl Sagan might say. We are all moving forward into whatever the future may hold, and we are all woven into each other. Walt Whitman as a person was rather racist. He was a proponent of eugenics and of varieties in racial characterization that we now know is just absolutely and utterly untrue and kind of an unconscionable belief. And I find that painful and very surprising considering the nature of his work. And in this instance, and most instances, I believe in the death of the author, in this instance it's very important to me to separate the author from his work, because his work speaks of a universality that his intellectual beliefs did not allow for. And I think, if I can be poetical for a moment, I think that the truth of the soul comes out in the art. And maybe he wasn't a great person, and maybe he believed things that were terrible, and honestly he did believe things that were terrible, but what he gave to the world was something beyond what he believed. And this has gotten very long, but those are the major themes of the work. Those are the major reasons I enjoy it, despite knowing what I do about Whitman's history, and the major reasons why I look to it in times of distress and fear and pain, in a way that, honestly, some people look to the Bible, but I've never been able to do that. So I wanted to read this poem for everyone, to listen to if you haven't the time to read it yourself, and I hope it can offer some of that same comfort. Thanks for listening, and my next project is going to be Bram Stoker's Dracula, which has very different themes and a very different meaning. So I hope you stick around.